A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another.
Hey, you guys, this is Kevin with G.F.E, Got Family and Everything Else podcast. So today I have a very special guest, more importantly, a brother in Christ with you. His name is Russell, and he is, well, long story, you'll hear about our history through our conversation, but he is the owner, CEO of Gnome Distillery that he started a few years back. I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about that in our conversation. But today's interview, we're just going to be going ahead and talking about some questions I've asked about his walk with God, some of his opinions and thoughts about what's going on in the world today, and how God has positively, well, obviously positively affected his life and his walk. So it's just a few questions. So if you can bear with us, that'd be terrific. And this is going to be an exciting interview because this dude makes me laugh all the time. So I'm sure what he says is going to make you guys laugh. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, first off, thank you, Kevin, for having me on. I'm looking forward to doing this on the regular with you. It'll be a lot of fun. I do have a question though. What's the weather like tomorrow? Since you're in Japan and it's Friday here and Saturday there, is the weather going to be okay for us tomorrow?
Looks like it might be a little bit more snowy, rainy. I don't know.
Oh man, you said snow, and it actually is supposed to snow this weekend too. That's so. You nailed.
Yeah, of course I do.
Oh, okay. Anyways, but yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to doing these a lot more. Yeah, this will be a great session for us.
Yeah, no, this is something that I really want to get doing, connecting more with you, and then connecting with other fellow Christians, even non-Christians as well. I would love to hear their perspective and their thoughts. I may not, more likely not agree with it, but I think it's a good idea to hear them out and not cast judgment right away. And then obviously we can help each other. We can even do it with like a panel, and that's what I would love to do as well. So having yourself, some other people you may know or I might know, we can all meet and just have a topic and discuss and see what we think about it, and then obviously provide scripture in there and hoping we can plant that seed in their hearts, and then that God can bless them and get to know the true God that we know. But my first question, more importantly, is that it's generally with a lot of people, is what actually inspired you to become a Christian, and how was your faith impacted in your life?
All right. So ultimately, like what made me want to become a Christian was my parents. Growing up, we went to church. We were at church every Sunday. And I think seeing them in the church impacted my life. And then ultimately going into the youth ministry and like learning, like making friends that were my age and stuff. I don't know if I really understood when I was in like 6th and 7th grade, 6th grade, a Christian was and what it meant to be a person that followed God. But when I got into middle school, I had made those friends, and we all went to like, now we're going from like the little kid classes into like the junior or the middle school, high school classes, youth group. And I got a connection with the youth pastor in my church, or at the time, that church. And I became just really curious about God. And I'm like, my parents go to church all the time. They worship God. They praise God. They believe in God. I believe in God, but I don't really understand it. And then he helped me understand. And I just grew closer to God. I ended up playing in the worship team in our youth group. And in, I want to say 8th grade, we were at like a winter retreat, and I was actually baptized. I asked God into my heart, and I was baptized. I don't know if I actually was at the winter retreat that I got. No, I wasn't at the winter retreat. At the winter retreat, I asked God into my life, and then at our church, I actually got baptized with one of the other girls, or one of the girls that was there. That at winter retreat, they got asked God into her life too. Her and I were really, really close, and we both after the worship service at winter retreat, I told her, I was like, Alicia, I just asked God into my life, and she was like, me too. And we were really close, and then I stayed close. Well, I kind of lost my way there for a while, and that was a very dark time in my life. I stopped going to church. I think my freshman year, sophomore year, and didn't step foot in a church until I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I stepped foot into a church is because I had a altercation with God. Yeah, your face. Yeah, I wrote a suicide letter back in 2005, and in the letter, the altercation that I had with God was actually in my brain. It wasn't really like, I guess on paper it could be considered an altercation. I told God that if he was alive at that point in time in my life, I would kill him myself. My faith was nowhere. I saw demons every day when I woke up. That was a very dark time in my life, and in my suicide letter, I told God, I was like, if you don't want me to kill myself, you need to have something happen within the week, or come Sunday morning, I'm gonna be dead. And I had it all planned out. I had a note here at the house, what could be done with my stuff. And it was 3 days after I wrote that letter, I was confronted by my parents. That we don't know what you're doing with your life. Well, actually, it was my mom. But my dad was sitting right there. And my mom was like, I don't know what you're doing with your life. We don't know what's going on with you. But you need to call this person. They're expecting you to call. I was like, all right. Pick up the phone. Person that answers, my old youth minister, Darren, who's like a big brother to me, that's out in Colorado. And all I hear when he answered was like, "What's up, Booney?" And Booney was a nickname from when I was in middle school.
Okay.
One time, I was like, "Oh man, we have a Booney rabbit at my house," and they were like, "A what?" And I was like, "A Booney rabbit," and they're like, "A bunny rabbit," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then like my brain processed that I said it weird, but then it was a nickname from that point on. I was always Booney.
All right, thank you for clarifying. All right.
And so he's like, "What's up, Booney?" And I immediately started crying. I'm like, "Darren, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life, man." And he's like, "Well, pack your bags. You're coming here." And Sunday morning, when I should have been dead, I was sitting in a church, and the whole time, the pastor's up there, and this church was huge, man. Rock Rimmon was the name of the church, and it was huge. I think that congregation was like 700 people, and they had 2 locations in Colorado. And I was just sitting there, and I'm pretty certain that I imagined the whole thing, but the whole time that I was sitting there, the pastor was like this, preaching, just staring right into me, and I was like, all right. And I kept hearing God say, "Look where you are. Look where you should have been, according to what you wanted. Do you really think I'd let you die?" And I started crying. We left. The next week at church, I was sitting in the same church pew, and I rededicated my life to Christ right then and there. I said, "God, I don't know where I was. I don't know what was going on, but I need you back here. And that was when God pointed out that He wanted me to use my past to help others um, in their struggles. And I went to school for pastoral ministries to be a youth minister. Uh, and then um, I didn't like wander away from God. Like I still worshiped God. I prayed about God. I prayed to God, not about God, but I prayed to Him. But I was not like strong in the faith, like strong, like, yeah, I just wasn't a strong Christian. Um, and this last year, I started kind of a journey, and I am actually doing a road to 20, is what it's being called to me. And it's my 20-year sobriety anniversary is this December. Um, so it'll be 20 years clean from drug addiction, which is phenomenal to me. I'm super happy. Um, and everything that I had been reading was about baptism and growing closer to God. And then I'd read baptism, and I'd read getting closer with God. And then a day or two would go by, and then all of a sudden there's that word baptism again. And I think God was just dropping these little subtle hints to the point where it finally like sank in, like, hey, Russell, like you were baptized, but then you went way off the grid and never were rebaptized. And so I'm actually on a road to 20 years. And on my 20-year anniversary, it's a Sunday, I'm actually going to be baptized that day. So it's a big movement, man. It's going to be super awesome. I'm looking forward to what God has in store for me for this week, or for not this week, this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a long answer, but I had to like recap a bunch of stuff for you.
Hey, I mean, honestly, I think that's great for a lot of people because we all go through journeys in our life to get to the point where we are in today. And God, listening to what you were saying to me, it makes me believe that God has allowed certain situations to happen in your life so you can open your eyes because He doesn't. If He intervenes every single time something comes up, then we won't place our trust in Him, if that makes sense.
It makes
Um,
tons.
or because we're just gonna take advantage of like, you know what, I'm doing something bad. Don't worry, God's got this.
Yeah,
Or, but how I've seen it, and it's not a fun journey at all. But
yeah,
this is what love is from God. If
yeah,
if I'm understanding it correctly, He allows us to fall flat on our face in hopes that we understand, and then we come to Him because He wants us. He has great plans for us, like He has great plans for you. And from
yeah.
just hearing from your journey, you battling with drug addiction and having suicidal thoughts, which I'm thankful that you didn't go through with it, honestly. Um,
Mhm.
but I think God has allowed you to get to a certain point where it was like a breaking point, and then He, because you and I know that there's God places people in our life for a season, for a reason,
Yep.
and and it sounds like this is what happened through your life to get you to the point where you are now and where you're really understanding and wanting to know who God is and having that
Yes.
personal relationship. Um, and you're using your past experience, which I believe will help other people as well, because
Mhm.
we all have struggles in our life, and it's not fun. but uh,
It
but
really isn't.
but it's encouraging because it makes people that don't know God or that choose not to believe or whatever makes us to them in hopes that we're human too.
Yeah.
Just because we're a Christian doesn't mean that we have it all figured out. No. and
It's, um,
and in some cases you would think about it being a follower of Christ, it's harder because this world is trying to pull you away and saying, no, this is what you really want. And
Yep.
let's be perfectly honest, sinning is fun. That I mean, for a short time, and then you realize the consequences of it. But
Yeah.
when you have that more relationship with God, you in that and His Word etched onto your heart, you're able to battle the flesh and
Yep.
whatever the Satan desires for you to do better.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's really cool though to hear about your journey, about how you came. It's it's very similar for me how I grew up. I grew up in the church too. My mom, I wouldn't say my dad was necessarily a church person. My dad believed, but he was he didn't quite understand this, and I was young too. But he was always like during offering, he's like, "Why are they always asking for money?" I'm like, um, he's like always trying to get money out of you. And I didn't quite understand why they were off, what the offering was for. Of course, older that I am, I understand, God blessed us with the means. So this is our way of giving back and saying thank you,
Yep.
giving from our heart. I wouldn't say the whole tithe tenth. It's from the heart what matters. If we
Yeah.
try to stick to like 10%, God's gonna be like, now you're just doing it because you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
And I will accept it because you want to give back.
Yeah.
But yeah, going to the church with my mom is what I feel like has molded and shaped me. And my nickname when I was growing up amongst my brother and my sister as the godly boy.
The godly boy.
Yeah. Yes. Because I would always say like, God doesn't like that and stuff. And I didn't necessarily have or know exactly who God was, but I
Yeah.
just had that moral code built into me, knowing that there's something greater than I am.
Yeah.
And I used to always look at and my brother and sister and be like, yeah, I don't think God likes that. And then so
That's so funny. So for the longest time, I actually nicknamed you. Do you remember the movie Remember the Titans?
yeah.
Okay, so I nicknamed you Preach because you know the Bible so well. Like that's something that like movie quotes got you. Random facts of knowledge got you. Hey Russell, what's the Bible say in this? Oh. Like the Bible is something that like for some odd reason like I'm working on it now. Like I'm really trying to get to where like I know the Bible, but like even when you lived here in the States, like I always felt like you'd be like, oh yeah, in the Bible it says blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and then one day I just was like, man, he's like Preach from Remember the Titans, and I'm never gonna tell him that until today apparently that's his nickname now. So
Thank you for the compliment, but let's
well,
be
well, they call me Godly Boy. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Preach. That's so funny.
but let's be honest, like I wasn't a big reader growing up, and
Yeah.
I can say the only book that I really actually remember finishing before now I started reading more was Memoirs of a Geisha, and that was my first time moving to Japan. I mean, no, my first trip to Japan. And
That's amazing.
I bought that book because I've seen the movie like 5 times in the theater. Even
Yeah.
sometimes I went by myself. But
Yeah.
I I don't like flying, and so I remember going to the airport and I said I need something to get my mind off of flying. So I went to the to one of those like stores and I saw
Yep.
the book and I'm like, "Oh, I've seen this movie over and over. Now I can just read." And it was like a 500-page book. And flying to Japan for the first time, I was reading it, trying to get my mind off of that I'm thousands of feet in the air.
Yeah.
And then I finally finished it, and obviously the book is better than the movie. But that was, I would say, the start of my when I started reading more. And now I would say I spend more time in the Bible than anything else. And I have my side books as well, like the one that you have of 50 Reasons Why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one right. Oh,
Yep.
this
Yep.
book, dude.
And do you know? Have you ever heard of this one?
I see goo ahead. It's like all blurred out. It looks like it says goo ahead.
It says questions God asks.
That's not even close to do it. Okay, it's questions. Questions what? Sorry.
Questions God asks.
Wow, how did I say goo
I,
ahead?
I can just imagine God doing a face palm and he's like,
Oh, it's Russell again. I created that, guys. You see that one? Yeah, I created him.
Jesus, well, like I told you, Dad.
I
But yeah,
think we get one too many funny bones. What do you think?
yeah. All in favor of Funny Bones, say aye. Aye. No. Wait, who was that?
5 of them.
Yeah, that was Christopher. Oh yeah, he's getting kicked out anyway, so don't pay attention to him. So.
Don't worry.
But yeah, I have some other books too that I want to finish. One, The Power of Prayer.
Okay.
And then this one is a really thick one by Andrew Murray on prayer.
Oh, all right.
I was given this from a friend of mine from church. He had given me this book a few years ago, and I started reading it, and then I made it to page 27. And
You're like, yeah, that's enough.
yeah, I was like, all right, let's find something a little bit more friendly. So
That's like Neil to the. Oh man, what book is it? Is it Numbers in the Bible?
where it's kind of like the genealogy.
Yeah,
Where it's
I think
just
that's
the names. Andrew's the descendant of this, and this is.
Yeah, I get like 2 chapters in, and I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. They're all related to somebody. Let's go. Like, this is. I don't think I've ever heard a pastor go, oh yeah, by the way, John was the son of David, and David was the son of Zechariah, and then all of a sudden we're like 40 minutes in, and we've only named like 12 people. I'm like, and how many of them were disciples? Well, none. Oh, okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I know
God, I love the Bible. That's just the most confusing thing for me to read. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's my thing. It's like I understand God put that in there for a reason, but it's like God talking to me, and I'm just like, and then he's like, you understand? But I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, exactly. Middle school, and all of a sudden you zone out for a while, and you get called on. And they're like Russell, and you're like, 12.
Yeah.
This is English. Oh,
Like I'm not hungry. Not hungry.
Yeah, I don't need to eat today. It's okay.
No. That wasn't the question. Let's move on.
Yeah. Anyways.
So my next question, what I want to go to, do you? Okay, so I made a video about this 2 times. This was in, I believe, the state of Louisiana, I believe. So they were passing a law where they were trying to legalize where you can have the 10 Commandments in school. And so at the beginning of that, when it was initially presented, like I was all for it. I'm like, this is great. This is terrific. They were going to just have it posted on the wall for students to walk by and just see it. It wasn't something that was necessarily going to be taught. It was just going to be there for students to raise questions and raise curiosity. So I was for that. I was like, that's great. You know what? Because a long time ago, we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we would say one nation under God, indivisible. But now that's completely has been eradicated, and now become more offensive, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
Now, I revisited that video that I made and then did the follow up, and I found out that the Supreme Court of the state of Louisiana actually put a block on it. So now they can't do that. And so they're right now trying to fight it and overturn it because they're saying there's many reasons that the judge should not have placed a block on it, saying that we're not trying to push our beliefs on the children, but we do believe that children should have every right to see this, and they don't have to follow it or not. But we need to put this back in there, put God in there, because if you're willing to have pride flags and all this stuff displayed, what's wrong with having the 10 Commandments? So
Yeah.
they're currently fighting on that right now. So my thought to you and my question to you is, do you believe God needs to return to our schools in America?
So what's funny is I can see kind of how you presented it. I can see both sides of this.
Hmm.
Uh, I 100% think that God should be allowed back in schools. Um, I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be like hateful
Hmm.
or crammed down people's throats. Like what you were saying, how it's just like up on the wall. That's cool. That's like me. I've got paintings behind me on the wall. Like that's all it would be. But it's gonna pique somebody's curiosity. One of those kids out of hundreds of kids sees that, like, and goes, wait a minute, what what is it like, what does this all mean? What is this? And then they ask the right teacher or
Hmm.
the person, like, or one of their friends, hey, did you see that thing on the wall over there? Oh yeah, that's the Ten Commandments. All of a sudden now it sparks a conversation about God. God's gonna be so happy that one kid is now talking to his friend that he didn't know was a Christian or religious. His friend's now sharing the gospel, so he's
Yep.
rejoicing everywhere. Like, I fully think that subtleties should be put back into school. I don't want it to become hate filled or just like ram down people's throat,
Right.
because that's already what society thinks us Christians are, is that we're haters,
Exactly.
and that, oh, if you don't do this you're going to hell. Like, ultimately, like, we believe that, like, if you're not saved you're going to hell, but we're not gonna be like, you're going to hell. Like,
Right.
they already think we're hate mongers. Like, for me, yeah, I think if it's in there, if God gets back into schools, it needs to be just real subtle, something on the wall. Like you said, if you can hang a pride flag, why can't we put up the Ten Commandments? If we can
Hmm.
put up, they have the uh, BLM flags that are up, the posters that are up in the school. And for people that don't know that, that's the Black Lives Matters movement. If they can have those up, why can't we have the Ten Commandments or a cross on the wall or say the Pledge of Allegiance? Some kid wants to say Pledge of Allegiance and the student next to him is Muslim or Jewish and they don't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, then they can sit there and they don't have to. There were videos out of kids sitting because they did not want to say the Pledge of
Hmm.
Allegiance. And there were people that were very rude and very mean to them, which now puts the face of Christians as hate mongers and hateful people,
Hmm.
because certain people acting inappropriately towards them. Um, so yeah, that's where I stand with that.
I agree. Um, yeah, I agree completely, because I mean, God did bless us with the option of the gift of free will. So
Yeah,
we have a choice to believe, and that's the thing, is that in the Bible, God said that He desires us to choose Him, to choose life. He doesn't want us to take that wide path to destruction. He wants us to take that narrow gate. And yes, it's very difficult, but when it comes to people that don't know God, we should be able to present it with love, truth, and of course, season it like the Bible says, season it, and then leave it into that individual and God. Don't force it down someone else. You see a lot of these street preachers, which I'm completely not against street preaching or anything
yeah,
like that, because you have John in the Bible, Jesus' cousin. He was pretty much one of those loudmouth guys that told it like it was.
yeah. He definitely was.
And so I'm all for that. But yeah, when it comes to like the schools, I just really think that God should really come back in there, because uh the ideology and the things that they're teaching our children, which I don't understand why such a negative thing is about about the Bible, when the Bible only teaches about love, respect, and caring for other people. And then also be honest and truthful when you see something wrong. I mean, that's a moral that all of us are wired with, but everyone thinks that it's we're preaching hate when we're actually preaching love. And
Yeah,
and and their definition of love meaning that I should be tolerant of what you're doing. And I'm like, no. And you and I've had this discussion before. Like, I love Ayano. There's some things
Yeah.
that I don't love that she does, I don't like, but I still love her. So my friends do things that I don't agree with, but I still love my friends.
Yep.
And you can be truthful in a loving way. Don't be hateful about it. And you should never really push your beliefs down somebody. You know, you can have a discussion. The moment you try to force it, that's just another way of pushing someone away. And
Mhm.
you can look at it as like a parent and their kids when they're in a relationship the parents don't like. And they start to hate that person and say, you need to stay away from that person. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to drive that daughter or son closer to the person you don't agree with, rather
Yep.
than just sit down and then talk to them and be like, yo, why have an open discussion? And then you can be respectful of why you don't support it. But then you say, you know what, I'm just going to trust that you do the right thing. But you need to remember, I love you. Come to me when you need help. And I will tell you out of love how I feel. And then you tell me how you feel, and then we'll grow from there.
Yeah.
And so that's how I see about going about preaching the gospel, is being truthful in love, not being like it's a teddy bear and like, oh, you know, God loves you and don't worry. I'm going to be honest about, look, we're all sinners. We all deserve to die. But through the grace of God, and then by the fact that he sent his son for us to die for our sins that we've been committing, that we still committed, you know, why wouldn't you want that open invitation to be with him for all eternity in a place where there's no pain, no suffering, no gnashing of teeth, no crying or anything like that?
Yep.
But this world wants, well, Satan, the prince of this world, wants to twist everybody and pervert God's word and making it seem like it's something that it's not.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm seeing is what's happening in society today. Satan feels like he's winning the battle, but he's not going to win the war.
Definitely not.
And that's the point, is that he's trying to twist it and pull as many people down with him as possible before he is finally locked in chains.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and to kind of move on, so there was Louisiana with the school and the Ten Commandments, so they're still battling that right now. Now in the state of Texas, they did implement a curriculum, Bible teaching curriculum. It's
I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yeah, I made a video covering that. And now the good thing about this, it's optional. So
Oh,
students,
perfect.
so it's not mandatory. Teachers can choose to teach it or not. They just have it now available and letting the teachers know, hey, you're not going to be in trouble for choosing to go down this route. And then they let their parents know, saying, hey, this is what we're going to be teaching. If you don't support it, then you can move your students to another class. Teachers, but parents, if you do, bring your students here. This still caused an uproar with some of the parents, but I'm like, this is the perfect way of doing it. What is the uproar?
Exactly.
They're not saying this is mandatory.
You're not going to graduate high school if you don't take this class. That's not what they're saying.
No. And so what their whole reason behind this is because they say the Bible teaches such beautiful teaching of being obedient, loving, caring, and everything that all students need to start taking seriously as they grow to be adults. And if we believe, if we teach them this as kids, this whole world is going to be a lot better place. I mean, I don't want to be a buzzkill. We obviously know what's going to happen in the world because the Bible talks about it. But while we're here, might as well share the gospel with as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We definitely don't want to hand somebody that knows nothing about God the book of Revelation and be like, here, read this for the first time.
They're like, oh my gosh. I'm having nightmares.
I don't know what to do. I heard somebody's car horn go off and I thought it was one of the bells.
Oh my gosh.
I'm giggling like, oh man, that would be horrible.
Okay, so my next question for you, is, what do you think about now progressive Christians?
Okay, so I actually, because you had sent me the questions, so I kind of was able to prepare myself a little bit, and I had actually never heard of a progressive Christian.
Hmm.
At first, my brain told me that, like, when I first read it, I was like, a progressive Christian. I'm like, oh, is that like one of those like 6-to-1 ratios? Which is, for those that don't know, I call them 6-to-1 ratios because 6 days a week they're a sinner, 1 day a week they're praising God and acting like that's all they ever do. So I call them the 6-to-1 ratios. For a while there, I was a 6-to-1 ratio. It was horrible. um, and so I had to look it up to understand what a progressive Christian was. And the more that I read on it, the more it was a little confusing because I want to do a little more reading and a little more research on the whole like their mindset.
Hmm.
Uh, because they believe in God and they believe that believing and being, from what I read, they believe in God and that He's the way uh, into heaven, basically. But it's not the only way to be saved. And I was a little confused by what I read, and so I want to read more about it. I want to do a little more research on it because it was something completely new to me that I had never heard. So
Yeah.
I can't really give you like a good answer because I don't know enough about what it is.
No. I completely understand. Why? I'm thank you for that because I'm a big believer on not speaking on things you're not quite sure on. So, and that's one thing I'm trying to teach Kai, to not keep putting his foot in his mouth. But when it comes to like whenever we're talking about sports and stuff, he always tries to say things about oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. He always tries to say things about like Michael Jordan or the past great players or today's players. And I'm like, well, have you actually seen a full game of this, or have you actually understood why they did it this way? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, let me tell you, this is exactly why. And then I
Yeah.
explained to him, I was like, but if you don't know, don't just say things just to say things or go along with the rest of the crowd. Find out for yourself. I said, this is important because it'll make you look very ignorant if you try to speak on something you don't know about. And so he's like, okay, okay. I was like, no, I'm really big on that. So I
Yeah.
will not speak on things that I don't know. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but with the progressive Christian, so this is my understanding and from what I've read and some of the content that I've seen, Christians that typically question the Bible's tradition. They're accepting of more about human diversity and working for social justice. So they view things as the world is trying to view things through a racial lens, saying that we should be more tolerant and accepting and inclusive. So the whole DEI thing, pretty much, like, oh well, God made you this way, so you should embrace who you are. Don't worry about it. God loves you
Huh?
for who you are. And I'm like, no, that's not how it is. Why do you think Jesus came? Jesus came because he told us our ways are bad, and he's trying to change us and for us to change our ways and follow him. Jesus didn't come down and sit there and say, your lifestyle, this is who you choose to be. All right, I see you love me, so I'm just going to leave you the way you are. No. God knows every single human being on this planet is a sinner and that we need saving and we cannot save ourselves. But this whole progressive movement, they don't want to believe that. They don't even talk about um, condemnation, meaning going to hell. They don't. They only picture or paint God, their God, as a tolerant God that understands our life struggles and that is there to help us and give us the things that we want. It's not, hey, we're not the whole true God that is a just God, that is a loving God, and that will put us in our place when we need to be put in our place.
Hmm.
And like so that's the whole progressive movement. And they also talk about teaching about love, peace, and justice. And I'm like, well, you don't necessarily know what love is. You know, I mean, even me being a Christian and more I'm growing towards God, I still don't fathom exactly the love that He has for us, because we don't deserve His love. So I can sit there and say I love God, but do I really know what I'm saying when it comes to love? And love isn't what this whole society tries to make it out to be, as in something easily to toss around, love is love, love is love. No, love means you need to be truthful and honest with the people that you disagree with, the people that you love. You don't become tolerant. And that's the progressive Christian movement.
Okay.
So they rebuke some of what the Bible says, and then they accept what they want. So they cherry pick, I'll say that.
Okay.
So just
Wow.
that all in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely am going to have to do some more reading on this, because this is, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've seen on the news, and I've seen over here as well. You've seen pastors and whatnot that are saying to LGBTQ or transgender and everything like that. Now, if you're a pastor saying, come as you are, great, but you're not going to leave as you came if you truly put your faith in God. You will have your struggles. That's a given. We're always going to struggle with something. Even Paul had something he was struggling with when he was like, "Get this thorn out of my side," and God's like, "Well, my grace is sufficient enough for you." He's like, "Well,
Yeah.
okay then, all right,
All right. I guess. Okay then. All righty.
yeah." So God will take us as we are struggling, but He doesn't want to leave us that way.
Yeah.
And so I'm for any pastor that says, "Come as you are," but you will leave as a different person.
Mhm.
Become born again. And that's what Jesus was speaking of to Nicodemus, when Nicodemus is like, "Well, how can you be born again?" And he's like, "You're a great priest and you don't know what I'm saying?" And he's saying you can't re-enter your mother's womb. What I mean is you're being born again, like what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
You're going to be baptizing, meaning that you are going to proclaim to the world that this is who you choose to follow for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And you come to the point where it's very serious and that you are trying to change who you were and trying to be someone that God wants and meant for you to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm for that. But if they're saying just come as you are, God is all accepting and stuff, as long as you love God, that's most important. I'm like, no. Even the demons know who God is, but do they have a relationship with him? No, they don't.
Yeah.
So that's the progressive Christian movement.
All right. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to do some like reading and research on that, because yeah, I'd like to read some more on it.
Sorry for the mouthful. I just
So, dude, that knowledge is power, dude, and so you're sharing it, and so I'm learning, which is good.
yeah, I'm just to me, I even I even got emotional the other night when I was praying about it, because I've never, the fact that God has placed this in my life and made this so important to me, and it's not about the YouTube channel, but it's more about me knowing him more, and God opening my eyes and giving me a lens of what's actually the spiritual battle that we're seeing today, is how important it is for me as a dad to raise my boys up into his word, into his foundation.
Yeah.
And not only that, not only ministering to my family, I need to share this to the world, because if you know the cure to cancer, why hold it to yourself?
Yeah.
So, but
I loved that, dude. If you know the cure to cancer, why would you hold it to yourself? That's just, that right there was impactful, dude. So thank you for saying that. That was amazing.
all praise and honor to God. It's just I really enjoy this. So
Yeah.
but let me ask you a fun one. Has anyone ever asked you to pray for them?
Yeah. Yeah. Multiple times.
What is the most unusual prayer request that you received?
Oh man. um, oh man. I'm not gonna say names. But I was asked one time to pray that somebody that I worked with would win the lottery, because they hated their job, and they were like, will you pray that I win the lottery so I can quit? And you know me, like I'm a very sarcastic person, so my first thought wasn't very smart. I I said, I'll pray for you if you give me some money. And they said, okay, how much? And I was like, oh, like $5,000. I don't care. I wasn't trying to do like a lot of money. I was like, if you win, you got to give me $5,000. They were like, okay. And yeah, I mean, I prayed for them. They asked me, but I didn't pray that they would win the lottery. I asked God to humble their heart and open their eyes to different paths,
Right.
different things that He had for them in their lives. But yeah, I thought it was crazy when I was asking, you just pray that I win the lottery so I can just quit. And I instantly wanted money for it. That was so bad. Like, I'm looking at it now and I'm like, man, that was so bad.
Like, sure, it'll cost you.
Yeah, I'll tithe $500 out of that $5,000. That's for sure. That's 10%.
You know, it's funny you say that because my brother, he was in the Navy, and I'm not sure about you, but I've never purchased a lotto or a scratch ticket in my life.
I've purchased lotto, and I think I've purchased a couple of scratch tickets.
Yeah, for some reason I had no desire. I just look at them. I'm like, I'm gonna lose, anyways. So, but
Yeah, well, here's $5, whatever.
yeah. But I remember when my brother was in the Navy, and he was in the Navy for about 5 years, and he would buy scratch tickets nonstop and play lotto tickets and everything. The reason being is because he was trying to win money to buy out his contract to get out of the Navy.
That's an amazing reason to win, dude. That's so good. I love it. I hate the Navy. I need to get out. Scratch tickets.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. That's so good.
And then he told me, he was like, if I won, I would never tell anyone. I was like, you tell me, right? And then he had a straight face. He's like, no. I'm like, you would, right? And he just give me this blank stare. I'm like, dang, he wouldn't tell me.
Okay, he wouldn't tell me. I always, you said that, and immediately my brain went to it. You've probably seen him on Facebook. I wouldn't tell anybody I won the lottery, but there would be signs, and it's like super nice boats or like a really big house or like something really dumb that like they had multiples of. And I don't know, you were like, would you tell me if you won? No. I'm like, but there would be signs.
I feel like God hasn't God okay. God knows my heart than I know myself. And I always use this excuse. I could be wrong, but I always use this excuse. And I'm like, God never made me rich because He knows what it would turn me into. So I think that's why He hasn't placed the desire for me to buy scratch or play anything. But I mean, there could be truth in that.
Yeah, my mom and I, we always talked about it. Like, well, we still do. We talk about if we won the lottery, like what that would look like.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have no idea.
I was like, honestly, like the first thing I would do is I would take care of like my family. Obviously, I would take care of my mom and dad. Their bills would be completely paid off.
Oh, absolutely.
My sister, her bills would all be paid off. My niece and her husband, their bills would all be paid off. My nephew and his girlfriend, they wouldn't have to worry. They would be okay. My bills, obviously, like I put myself down towards like the bottom of the list because I was like, I'm gonna bless others before I even try to think about myself. And then I was like, no, honestly, like I would put money aside, and then I would. This kind of shows my heart. And what I had said about the distillery earlier is I wanted to bless people. Like I would spend so much of my money depending on how much I won. Like if I won $50, like I'm filling up my gas tank. But if it was like just an obscene amount of money, like hundreds of $1,000,000 or whatever, and I would just bless people. Like I see them on YouTube all the time, guys going around and just blessing people when they're at the gas pumps, giving them a couple $100 saying here. Or there's another guy that goes around neighborhoods and he acts like he's moving into the neighborhood and he asks like, oh, how much do you pay for rent? And people are like, oh, I pay like $800. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, wow, that's not that bad. And then he just like reaches in his pocket and pulls out like 3 months worth of rent for him and goes, here, I want to pay your rent for the next 3 months. And that is like, when I see the videos, I want to do stuff like that, but I don't want it to be done on social media. I don't
I
want.
was just I was just gonna say
I want
that.
to glorify God with nobody knowing, because I don't want the praise on me. I want the praise on God.
I was just
I
gonna
wanna
say
go,
that.
I want to go, and if I'm able enough to go and pay 5 or 6 people's rent for the next 4 months, and they go, "Why are you doing this?" I'm gonna be like, "Because God told me to bless you." I'm not gonna be like, "I'm trying to get YouTube famous," or "I'm trying to get TikTok famous." Like, I'm doing it because it's in my heart, and God's laying it on me to help you.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because I was just thinking that. I'm like, it's cool to see, but then also they're doing it out. They may not realize, but subconsciously they're doing it out of selfishness because they want
Yep.
praise.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminded me in Matthew, in the book of Matthew 6:3, when they're talking about the poor, not
Yep.
letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing. You
Yeah.
know, and so why try to get that praise when you want that praise from God, for one? And remember numerous times. Now, I'm still trying to figure out why. I understood some of this reason why, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly why. When Jesus would heal someone, he would say, "Don't tell anyone."
Yeah. Right. I actually oh, I want to say it was, no, it wasn't in the book Acts. I can't remember. I just read something about, like, just recently, that Jesus healed somebody, healed a leopard, somebody with leprosy, and he was like, "Okay, now go, but don't tell anybody." And I'm like, why? And but then, like,
Yeah.
he is like thinking, like, maybe it's because the people are gonna see this guy that they've known with all these, like, nasty, like, leprosy marks all over his face, and they go, "Wait a minute, isn't that the guy with the leprosy? Like, wait, Jesus is in town. Oh my gosh,
Mm.
Jesus just healed this guy." Like, that's the only reason that I can think of that Jesus tells all these people, like you said, don't tell anybody. It's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
heal you, but don't tell one person.
And
And
yeah, that's what. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, I didn't say nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was kind of leaning on as well, and then also thinking about like, okay, so Jesus is telling the person not to say anything. Is he saying it because he doesn't want people to believe with their eyes? He wants people to believe with their ears,
Mm,
or because it just brings me to the verse in John when Thomas didn't want to believe the other disciples that Jesus rose, and then when
yep.
Jesus appeared, he said, "Do you believe me because you see me? Or do you or but then how happy are people that believe in me has never seen me
Yeah.
or but only heard my teachings?"
Hmm.
So I'm like, is that part of the reason why he was telling people? Because he wants people to believe off of faith and not by always just something physical.
I like that. That's a good idea. Wow, I never would have thought of that either. It really
So
oddly that you said that. Like, my brain was like, it's the Santa Claus syndrome. Seeing is believing, not believing is seeing. And
mhm.
I was like, man, that's weird. And I think I just made like some weird disease. So hopefully nobody gets sick. Santa Claus syndrome. I have it. It's graying of the facial hair.
I I keep my well no wait before you start laughing. All right. I would grow mine out and I have gray too, but I keep it completely
Yeah.
shaved off.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, well you know I have no hair. But
Yeah. So do
but
I.
yeah, no, it's starting to show. But I keep it shaved off for right now. One day I'm gonna let it grow. One day.
Okay. I would love to see you with a beard.
I know the people won't recognize me, but Um, but yeah, no, so that's how I interpret some of what Jesus was saying, and then that we don't always have to see it to believe it. And Jesus even made that point to Thomas, and he's just saying, like, I love that statement. He's like, You only believe in me because what did Thomas say? He was all like, I will not believe until I put my hand in his hold and into his side. And Jesus
Yep.
can't like, here, place your hands in these places.
Yeah,
And
he's like,
then
what's Thomas here? Go ahead. Boop.
yeah. And he's like, my Lord and my God. He's like, well, do you believe because now you see me? You know,
Yeah.
how blessed are people that believe but have not seen? And I'm like, I have never seen Jesus, but I believe he's real based
Mhm.
off of his teaching and his word. Now, one thing that the disciples didn't have, they didn't have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John
Yeah.
like we do. They were
Yeah.
actually living
That's,
it. So
yeah, they were Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John.
yeah. So they were actually living it.
We weren't.
Yeah. So it always made me now I understand now because if I place myself in their shoes, of course, let's be honest, I would be a little skeptical too if somebody was telling me who they were. And then there's numerous times in the book of John where the disciples are like, "Oh, they saw and then they believed, and then they saw and then they believed." I'm like, "What's with this roller coaster of believing?" But
I
now
just
I understand.
I just read all of that in the book of John, and then you're bringing it up now, and my brain is honestly thinking like, okay, yeah, this crazy roller coaster of like, I believe in him, I don't. I believe in him now that I saw him, now I don't. It's like a game of hide and go seek.
Yeah.
But my other part of my brain goes, could you imagine being in that room when Jesus appears? And now you're looking at Timothy going, you can stick your finger in that wound right there, dude, because I want to watch this. Like, this is gonna be crazy. Go ahead, dude. He's right there. I believe the whole time. What's up, man? How's it going, Jesus? Hey, go ahead, Timothy. Stick your finger in him. Go ahead. It's right there.
I know you do it.
Imagine like, just being in that room, hanging out with a bunch of people, and there's Jesus, and then every room, because they all looked right at him, like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't put myself in that room. I'm like, I don't know how he reacted of like besides like what we read, but like that first initial like culture shock of him being there. Every eye looked at Timothy and Timothy's going,
Dude.
like, oh, that's him.
Yeah. I mean, the Bible says that the doors were locked and then Jesus came among them. And then I can just imagine them just sitting there eating dinner and like, hey, what are you guys going to do next week? I don't know. Let's continue hiding because we're scared. Oh, yeah. Okay. And then, hey, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like everybody just looks like, what?
Like, hey, John, do you see what you guys?
Like the '90s ninja, like when they would throw the little like ball and they'd all disappear. That's like what I envisioned God doing. All of a sudden,
Yeah, when he just left them.
yeah, he just like all of a sudden he's gone. Like they're like, what the heck? Jesus is a king of hide and seek.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, what were we eating? I was eating the
Yeah,
same thing as you.
what's in the? Is this wine bad? This smells.
Yeah, the fact that he showed up to over 500 people, I mean, yeah, it's just an amazing yeah. But yeah, so hey, I'm gonna go ahead and get this wrapped up here. I know I didn't go over every single question that you guys might hear, but we still have plenty of time to go over some more stuff for you guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Ross, this was awesome. Great
Yeah,
time, as also always. um, and I learned so much, and I just truly blessed by this opportunity. So thank you.
likewise. Thank you.
Um, and you guys, we will be having more videos on this in the upcoming future, weeks, months, years to come. Hopefully, God willing. However, He chooses to utilize us, we just all want to do this for the glory of God. Um, but we really hope that what you heard from us today will encourage you to go into the Bible and find out for yourself. I'm really big stickler on don't just go off of hearing, go find out for yourself. Open up God's word because He will speak to you through His word. But yeah, do you have anything else to add?
No, again, just thank you for the invite here, and honestly, like, just I thank God that he made this actually happen. Like, we'd been talking so long about it, and it's finally here, and now it's going to be a reoccurring thing. And yeah, if hopefully something that we said sparks something inside of you to be able to read the Bible or reach out. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Feel free to tag me when you put up the links. If people want to know more about me or have questions for me, they're more than willing to reach out. And I'm a complete open book. Like, I'll tell you my past. I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you my present and what hopefully is in store for my future.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and leave his contact in the comments below, Instagram, and also go check out his Gnometree Distillery. Do you have a website or no?
No website yet, but we're on Facebook and on Instagram as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave all that below.
Yeah, Gnometree Distillery. The Facebook has gnome_tree_distillery, and then the Instagram is all one word, or I have those backwards because I always get them flipped around.
No worries. Cool. Well, I'm sure he's going to go ahead and provide me all that information. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave it in the comments below. And please also comment on and tell us what you guys think. Again, as always, I like to always end this on hitting the share, like, and subscribe, not for me, but for God to expand his kingdom, for other people to get to know him personally. And as always, I always like to say this: if you want life, choose Christ. But I will see you next time. All right.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon.
All right. Have a good night, and tell your mom and dad I said hi, please.
I will. Please tell the family I said hey, and much love to you guys.
All right. Love you too, man.